Takes us on to item 12, which is partnership grants, which I think Councillor Brown, you're proposing, and Councillor Leppard is seconding. Councillor Brown, a brief introduction.
Right, I'm really pleased to bring this report to Cabinet tonight so we can get this money out into the community at speed. The money was set in the budget aligned with the Council's corporate missions, and it is recommended that the Cabinet approves the allocation of grant aid to support grant aid to projects as set out in Appendix A to the report, and Cabinet approves the allocation of an additional £3,000 per year from the Discretionary Services Fund to support partnership grant funding. I am really looking forward to seeing all the good it will bring into the community for the residents of Harlow.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any questions? Partnership grants? Yep, we have several. Yeah, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. I have already asked this question, but I think that everybody should hear the answer. On page 8, criterion E states projects that support women's safety and behaviour change. It's worded a little ambiguously. My question was, whose behaviour? Whose behaviour?
That was the perpetrator's behaviour.
Duly noted. Councillor Edwards, I think you had a question.
In terms of the, I just want to be clear. In terms of these £50,000 partnership schemes, this is there are this form of funding, which is a neighbours grant. There are also other forms of funding that come up throughout the year, and are we collating, you know, the different ways that we're offering grants at all? So, for example, last year, £50,000 in August of last year, £50,000 was made available to the rugby club, and that came out of a neighbourhood regeneration funding, as it were. But I wasn't clear about whether or not, if there, presumably there will be other funds that do become available, and do we have criteria for them? And do we also have, are the voluntary sector aware of the way that they can apply for those grants? And
If we just, hang on.
Sorry,
Councillor Edwards, if you turn that off.
Are we on? Yeah, there is additional funding that is coming out shortly. And those that weren't successful in this round have been signposted over to the additional funding that's coming out too.
I think just to add to that as well, I mean, you referenced the grant from last year. That was actually moved to the Discretionary Service Fund, which is where this funding is coming from as well. As the report details, as you say, there's other grants we give out as well. Some are long-standing that we've given year on year to some organisations. I think what the report also details, and probably particularly the governance implications, is about our general approach to grants in the round, not just for organisations and their knowledge of grants and, you know, the process and all those sort of things, but also in terms of our governance and assurance of those grants, how they're being spent, that they're, you know, making the impact that we have granted the money for, all of those sort of things accordingly. Yep.
And I mean this in as constructive way as I can, as it were. I just feel that there's possibly some work for us to do as a council in terms of detailing the various grants that become available, and B, looking again at trying to consolidate the criteria and looking to see what it is we're wanting to get out of the various grants that we're doing and providing, because I think that's, over the years, I think that's possibly got lost, and we need to possibly look again at that. Just an observation.
Yeah, we did get quite a lot of applications come in, so I think the community is quite aware of when the grants were available.
But, and as you say, in terms of the governance and assurance around that and the whole picture, that is something that's being worked on at present. Yeah. Councillor Griggs.
Thank you. I note it says in here that the successful applicants will receive this money for a period of 3 years. So they've effectively got 30 grand each, most of them, and presumably 9 grand for the odd one that's been tacked on. Does that mean there are no further applications, or is a new pot going to be available for new applications as of next year and then the year after and the year after that?
Well, specifically on this one, this is a 3-year grant deal. So it's a 50,000 pot that's effectively built into the base budget, or it's funded from a reserve. But so there's the intention at present is that that's not reopened, as it were. These are the grants set for this in future years. Obviously, our budget may change next year. We could look at how things change that regard, or if there are other forms of grant we wish to see. And I think, like I said, the comprehensive work that's going on at the moment to consider our grant funding position in the round across all the things that we do will help to inform that as well. But specifically, the partnership grants, as it's set out at the moment, is not sort of new applications in future years. It's as the previous round was. It was a 3-year grant funding agreement to be the same for this. Yeah.
So just to be totally clear on that, I think I've got it. This is effectively it until the end of this council. i.e.
From this pot as it currently stands, yes. Yeah, this partnership grant scheme, yeah. But that is not to say, I wouldn't wish anyone to conflate the fact that the only grants we are giving out between now and the end of this council is this, because that would not be true. Any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Shepherd.
If you recall, as I'm sure we all do, for the digital awards grant, there was a function hosted, wasn't there, to congratulate people at the end of business who received the grant. Would the council consider doing a sort of similar cross-party event to recognise the recipients of these grants in the same fashion?
I'm sure we will look at those things in due course. Councillor Pearce.
I've got several questions. How was fairness assured in assessing applications for smaller and newer organisations who may not have the same level of reporting experience?
Do you want to pick that up, Becca?
So I think the grant criteria was quite well advertised. I completely take your point. Unfortunately, sometimes when there are smaller organisations, they're not set up in that way, and we always have to balance that with the governance need to make sure that whoever we're granting money to are able to deliver what they say that they can deliver. So we kind of set the kind of due diligence at the lowest possible point we could to make it accessible to everybody, but still having to make sure that people are appropriate who are applying for money. And unfortunately, sometimes that does mean that smaller organisations aren't able to do so, but we've always got to balance that governance side of things.
Will support be offered to unsuccessful applicants to help them reapply to find alternative funding?
This was one of my questions that I raised, wasn't it? And this is something that we're looking at doing.
So, make it my last one on this. How will the Cabinet keep updated on delivery against partnership priorities and over the 3-year funding cycle?
So there's, in terms of the grant funding agreement and the way that the grant funding works in terms of the time periods and them meeting those things, obviously they'll be reviewed by the portfolio holder accordingly, and I think the intention is probably a fairly regular-ish report to Cabinet accordingly. Yeah. Any further questions? No? Any comments? No? Well, if I just conclude by saying, obviously, this is a very good thing. We are supporting a number of organisations in the VCS to further the delivery of the Council's corporate missions and to make a difference to the community accordingly, which I'm sure we would all agree is a good thing. So with that, our Cabinet happy to agree to the recommendations that are set out? Agreed. Excellent. Very good, which takes us on to item 13, which is the right to buy financial charge postponement policy update report, which Councillor Carter, I think, you're proposing, and Councillor Leppard is seconding. Over to you.
Does it work? Yes. Thank you. Yes, the papers attached a right to buy financial charge postponement policy update. This is an update of the policy on whether to postpone or defer charges secured against a right to buy properties. The Council retains a legal interest in properties purchased under the right to buy scheme for up to 10 years. The Council is entitled to repayment of the discount upon the initial sale, which tapers down to zero after 5 years. The Council's charge ranks behind that of the organisation who has given the initial mortgage. If the right to buy owner wishes to take out further borrowing secured against the property, the lender will seek the Council's consent to defer or postpone its charge. In my little terms, the way I look at this is if the additional loan is to enhance the home, i.e. new windows, doors, kitchens, extensions, this would increase the value of the property and should be fine. If, however, the money was used for a round-the-world trip, this would not enhance the value of the property and it would be questionable.
Glad we've cleared that up. Any questions on the policy update? Yeah, Councillor Pearce.
I have several questions again. How will the Council communicate the updated policy affected to the right to buy homeowners, particularly those who are already in the process of applying?
Pick that up, Alan. Or even Dan.
I can do, Leader, thank you. What I would say, to put some context around this, the Council get very few applications to set aside the charge. So over a year, often we have less than 20. So it's not used very often. And then given the changes to right to buy, this is likely to actually fall away even further. So the team would notify people if they are in the current application process, but we wouldn't necessarily know that until the lender, it's usually the lender that approaches us first on behalf of the resident.
How does the Council plan to balance the need of and protect the public funds when enabling residents to maintain or improve their homes?
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. I think this whole policy is geared towards giving the Council protection and putting down some guidelines. I think the team have been applying those guidelines without the policy statement, so having the policy in place will protect the Council's interests.
Last one. So how will the Council ensure the process does not delay critical health and safety improvement where there are needs urgently?
The first thing to say is obviously the clearer policy will help accordingly, because everyone, including the lender, as has just been said, should have much greater clarity and therefore we should be able to move through the process much quicker in any scenario. Yeah. Any further questions? Councillor Ingle, Councillor Morrison, I don't know if you had any questions. No? Fine. Any comments on this? No? In which case the recommendation's agreed? Agreed. Very good. Which takes us...